Hello BookTube, welcome back to my 2025 Library Tour. In this episode, more French monarchs and a British Queen. Starting off with Francis I, the maker of modern France, by Leonie Frida. So this is a biography of Francis I, who was a French king who was not necessarily expected to come to the French throne, but who spent much of his time as King of France trying to become Duke of Milan, for which he usually lost when he came up against the Holy Roman Emperor and the King of Spain. The Queen by Matthew Dennison. This is a relatively recent biography of Queen Elizabeth II. It came about 2 or 3 years ago. I want a better biography of Queen Elizabeth II. Certainly, I definitely do. The first part of this biography is pretty good. The second part is largely nothing more than gossip and scandal mongering, which is not what I want from a biography of the Queen. Catherine de' Medici, Renaissance Queen of France, by Leonie Frida. So this is a biography of Francis I's daughter-in-law, Catherine de' Medici, who was the queen to Henri II of France, and the mother of Francis II, Charles IX, and Henri III. And he was a major figure in the history of mid and late 16th century France. Pretty good biography, if I remember, although there's another one coming up in a few days that I much prefer. Speaking of Queens of France, Marie Antoinette, The Journey by Antonia Fraser. So this is a biography of Marie Antoinette, who was the queen of Louis XVI and was Queen of France during the French Revolution. So I picked this book up a few years ago for Steve Donahue's book club, and I liked the first part of the book, but there came a point where it got a little bit too scandal-mongery for my taste. And of course, there is the French Revolution, which is one of those historical subjects that I have a hard time reading. And so probably the end of Marie Antoinette's life, no matter how good Antonia Fraser is at telling it, is probably going to piss me off. Why, I don't know. The Opium War by Julia Lovell. So this is a history of the Opium War, which was a conflict between the Qing Empire and the British Empire in the 1830s, early 1840s, and its after effects. Did not particularly get on with this. I've tried it a few times, and I suspect perhaps maybe the reason why I cannot bail redeem this book is because the circumstances of the first bail. I had a mental health crisis. 2-3 years ago? I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago. Because I think it was like no fiction 2022 or no fiction 2020, something like that. And this basically killed that idea because I just had a mental health issue while I was reading it, and it was impossible for me to continue. History of Crete by Chris Morey. This is a history of Crete from its earliest days as the Minoan civilization to the present, Have not gotten around to it yet. Picked it up from University of Chicago Press during one of its book sales. The Anarchy, The Relentless Rise of the East India Company by William Dalrymple. I have got to get to this book. I've had this for years now, and I've been meaning to get to it, and I just have not. I really need to get to this book. Feudal Society, Volume 1, The Growth of Ties of Dependence by Mark Bloch, translated by L.A. Mannion. So this is a book that I have had for a very long time. I picked it up from either a Friends at the Library book sale about 10 or more years ago, or I picked it up from my university of my alma mater, because they used to every year put out discarded library books, and professors would put out books as well for people to just grab. I don't remember it, and I've never gotten around to it either which way. The Fourth Crusade and the Sack of Constantinople by Jonathan Phillips. Have not gotten around to it yet. A History of South Africa by Frank Welsh. So this is a history of South Africa. I read it many years ago. Quite liked it. Wanted a copy in my library, although I have not revisited it since. Vietnam, A New History by Christopher Gosha. So this is the history of Vietnam that came out a few years ago. The paperback was released late last year, which is why I picked this up. Have not gotten around to it. Nor have I gotten around to Korea, A New History of North and South by Victor D. Cha and Ramon Pacheco Pardo, whose paperback release also came out late last year. Not early last year, late last year. Empires of the Indus, The Story of a River by Alice Albinia. Have not gotten around to this book. I thought I got rid of this book. Empire's Crossroads, A New History of the Caribbean by Carrie Gibson. So this is a history of the Caribbean that I did not get on with. And I could have sworn I got rid of it. But apparently, I did not. Insurgent Empire, Anti-Colonial Resistance and British Descent by Priyamvada Gopal. So this is a really good study of British voices of dissent against the British Empire. Really good. I liked it. Genghis Khan and the Making of the Modern World by Jack Rutherford. So this is a biography of Genghis Khan that's disappointing. I would have liked a better biography. Or I would like a better biography in my collection at some point. The Darkening Age, The Christian Destruction of the Classical World by Catherine Nixie. So this is a history of the Christianization of the Roman Empire and the subsequent destruction and suppression of non-Christian religions and peoples and knowledge. I tried this book several years ago, I think shortly after it came out in the U.S. It kind of petered off for me, but I wanted to add it to my collection anyway, which I did, although I have not come back to it. So, anywho. Empire of Horses, the First Nomadic Civilization and the Making of China by John Mann, which I have not gotten around to yet. So that finishes off that shelf. I will be back tomorrow with the next shelf on this bookcase. Until then, BookTube, thank you, have a great afternoon, and stay safe.